Welcome back, everyone, for another episode of our podcast. I am delighted to have with me today Mr. Brandon Leevy, 2017 graduate of AFA. Brandon, I don't have to tell you that I'm thrilled to land such a big fish in the AFA pond. Welcome, Brandon. How do you do?
I'm doing great. I'm honored to be here. I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be great.
Absolutely. I'm excited too. I was very glad when you agreed to do this. My memories of you, Brandon, as a student are, number one, a great participator in discussion. Number two, interesting things to say. But also, number three, you were the only person, not the only person in the school, but the only person I knew of or I'd read who predicted that President Trump would win in 2016.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember post-election day giving you the floor, and you just said, "Oh, I told you so."
That's right.
And also, Brandon, you are one of only two students in AFA history to pull off what we say should never, ever be tried or attempted, the last-minute swerve on the senior thesis topic. But you did it. Actually, I was your advisor that year, and actually I was the advisor of the only other person to do this too. So I'm sorry, Brandon, for all of the bad advice I must have given you. And that other gentleman as well, many years prior. But welcome, and I look forward to our conversation.
Me too.
All right, great. Well, let's get right into it then. You came to AFA as a freshman, correct?
Yes, correct.
And you graduated in 2017. Tell us about your AFA experience, maybe some of its highs and lows, and what you took from that.
Sure. So when I first joined AFA as a freshman, really I think when I took the placement test to get into the school, I was supposed to be a sophomore actually, but I didn't do very well. And being completely honest, I probably shouldn't have even been coming in as a freshman. But thank God that there was people at the school pulling for me and wanting to give me a chance. So it was a huge learning curve for me at first. It was super challenging. I can still remember taking my diagnostic test in Mr. Lockhart's, I think it was pre-algebra class. And I remember just sitting there and just bombing and just being like, oh my gosh, I got some crazy score on it. It was really bad. But after that test, I remember him coming up to me afterwards and asking me like, hey, what's going on? I saw your test, and of course my score was really bad. And so he really wanted to help me though. And that's when I first started to realize that okay, this school is a little different. The fact that he reached out to me like that without me even going to him, but just seeing hey, something's up, this kid's score is, crazy. But even after that, it took me a long time to adjust. My freshman year was rough. But as I got older, I started to understand really the culture more and finding my place within that. I think at first I was just having trouble, I guess, finding my place within the school and really understanding the way that things worked and just having structure. I was coming from a homeschool environment, as I know a lot of students at AFA have been previously homeschooled. I was coming from a homeschool environment where there wasn't a ton of structure. But as I progressed and as I got older, I really just started to put my guard down and just stop. I was just fighting against a lot of what just the school in general for my first 2 years. And once I did that, I actually really started to enjoy myself. I started participating in discussions, and I actually started to realize, how beneficial that it was. And if I'm being honest, I didn't really fully realize how beneficial my experience at AFA was really until after I graduated. Really my senior year, maybe end of junior year, but mainly after I graduated. And like still to this day, more and more, I start to appreciate it more. So yeah, if I could go back, you know, I would have come in with a different attitude. But again, I think part of that was because I knew I was coming in at such a deficit, and I just knew the kids were really smart, and I was going to have to, you know. But a lot of that was in my own head, and so, you know.
Yes. So you mentioned, you know, Brandon, some of what you say is not unique. You know, other students talk about sometimes having this hard time adjusting. And you mentioned it was a kind of a mental flip, as it were, that happened sometime around maybe 10th grade or the end of 10th grade, something like that. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? What was it that, was it a particular event that happened, or was it a particular moment in time you recall, or was it just a gradual realization? Can you be a little more specific on what, the nature of this flip?
Sure. So, I mean, I think a big part of it was that, you know, I had come in my freshman year, you know, with a group, you know, of students, and like specifically my close friend group. And, you know, having a friend group like in school is great. It can be great for a lot of reasons, but at the same time, it can be detrimental because once that group develops a certain attitude, you know, towards school or towards whatever it is, then it kind of just, you feed off of each other, and it's just not a healthy situation. So junior year and senior year, you know, a few people had left, and, you know, I was starting to take school more seriously. And, you know, I don't know if I could put my finger on exactly what it was that clicked for me. But I think it was just, I was finally starting to adjust after just having such a big learning curve for those first 2 years. And, you know, I like I said, I don't know if I could pinpoint exactly what it is, but definitely the teachers had a big role in that. Because, I mean, the teachers were always there. It's just that I didn't view them the same way. I started to view teachers differently. Like as a freshman, I was like, okay, me, teachers, kind of like, you know. And then by the time I was like a junior, senior, I actually had like a good relationship with like all of the teachers. And, you know, that was a big part of it. And that's something that I've carried with me into college. That's probably one of the best things that I got from AFA, is just having a relationship with your teachers. Like, it's shocking how many kids, you know, like at my college and just in school in general, it's like they don't view their teachers as human. It's like they don't have any conversation with them. They go into class, they do the work, they leave. So I think that played a big role in it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So even in college, you find that's not most people's attitude. How has that helped you at High Point?
Yeah. So it's helped me tremendously, because one thing that I always say is, you know, you have to remember, teachers are people, like they're humans too. And like, they didn't get into the job of teaching just so they could stand up there and just talk and then have you leave and then just be no conversation. Like, they're people too. And so, you know, just asking questions, paying attention, like, you know, giving eye contact at the least. That's really helped me, because, and not necessarily, I'm not saying like, oh, you should do it to give yourself some kind of advantage in the class, but I will say, just because of human nature, if a teacher has a good relationship with you, you know, and you talk with that teacher and you guys discuss things related to class or outside of class, yeah, they may be more favorable towards you, you know. Then that's not why you should do it, but it's going to make class a lot more enjoyable for you. It's going to make things easier for you, and it's going to it's going to affect the way that they view you at the end of the day, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's great, Brandon. You know, most people that I've talked with don't say that in particular about what they take from AFA. This idea of like relating to your teachers. You would say that's your biggest, shall we say, the biggest takeaway from your AFA experience?
Yeah, I would say that that's the biggest like soft skill takeaway from my experience. Yeah, most definitely.
What might be the biggest hard skill? That's a good differentiation, by the way. Is there a particular hard skill that you took from AFA?
Absolutely. It would have to be just going through the writing. I will say, first of all, the writing, and specifically like senior thesis, because the stuff that you do in senior thesis is stuff that I realized when I got to college. This is stuff that they teach in college. Like most of the people going into college, you know, I remember the little story, my first day in this writing class that I had, the teacher asked us, he goes, okay, we're going to go around the class and I want each of you to tell me what's the longest paper you've ever had to write in high school. And I was sitting there kind of dreading it, honestly, because I didn't want people to think that either I was lying or I was trying to be a show off when I said a 25-page paper in high school. But most of the kids said, you know, oh, the longest paper they had written is a 5-page paper, you know. And even that was rare. So, and not that like the more pages you write, the better writer you are. It doesn't work like that, but it does. Being at AFA and the type of work that's assigned, it does prepare you for a college workload. And I think most people would say this. Most people that I've talked to have said this, and I agree. My workload at AFA was way more difficult than anything that I've done in college at this point. For me personally, and I think a lot of people would agree with that. But yeah, writing and speaking are two huge things. And another thing is, and this is kind of a combination of both the hard skill and soft skill, but it might be the most important thing, and that's just basically just being able to get yourself to learn like on your own, you know. Because that's something that you kind of have to do to, you know, when you're given hard coursework, like at AFA, I'd say it's difficult. You really have to sometimes go beyond just, you know, really just doing the bare minimum. You have to get yourself to be able to learn. I think that's one of the best skills anybody can have in life is just being able to like take initiative and actually go. Especially like with senior thesis, you got to go do your own research. You've got to get your sources. You've got to verify your sources. So just having that responsibility on yourself is huge.
Yes. Excellent thoughts there, Brandon. Thank you. But what some may know, and probably many may not know, is that your post-graduation life was I think was unique among our grads. You went actually out west and attempted and gave a shot at becoming a recording artist, a rap recording artist. Tell me about that. First of all, I guess, why did you attempt to do it? Well, there's so many questions I could ask. Like, what is it about rap that really grabs you? What was your experience like? Why did you decide to come back to college? Anyway, why don't I let you just begin?
Sure. So I always, I grew up around rap music. So my older brother, who's like 11 years older than me, was a producer and a rapper when I was growing up. So I always kind of enjoyed rap music, and I'd always kind of sit around and watch him create music and stuff. But it's something that I kind of always did, like even like at high school, I would like just like freestyle sometimes, you know, like at the lunch table type thing, but I never really took it that seriously. But then my junior year, end of my junior year or summer going into my senior year of high school, I put out this rap video like of me freestyling on social media, and it just for some reason, it just blew up. And next thing I knew, like by the end of my senior year, midway through my senior year, I had like 50,000 followers on social media. And so I was like, and I don't know if like, I think some people at the school knew, but I don't know if like the teachers knew or anything. I didn't really want them to know, to be completely honest. But I remember like Mr. Rogers said something to me about it at one point, and I was like, oh my gosh, he knows. But so after I graduated, I had a lot of momentum, but then I was going off to school. So I contemplated not even going to school and just continuing the music because it was going so well. But I decided to go to school. And then when that happened, I felt like I had slowed my momentum down with music. I was kind of disappointed. I had lost like 10,000 followers or something because I wasn't posting. I was busy with school. And so at that point, I had a manager. And my manager said, look, you know, maybe time to take a break from school. Let's give this a shot right now while, you know, you still have the momentum that you have. The problem with that was that he and I, to some extent, had a vision for basically the artist that I should become. And that artist was not the person who I was. Because, you know, we were like, okay, we have to make you more marketable. We have to make you more this, more that, more, right? So we basically went through a whole transformation to turn me into this thing that I really wasn't. So I grew, like I had dreads, I had, he got me a bunch of jewelry, I had, just the whole nine, like everything that when you think rapper, I had all of that. Dyed my dreads crazy colors, all that stuff. Anyway, as you could probably guess, that is not sustainable. Like if that's not you, you know, and it wasn't me. And so thank God, because we were actually supposed to be moving out to LA. At this point, we had some people investing in the situation, and we had someone paying for us to get a Airbnb in LA. We're going to be moving out there and just going full force at this thing. And thank God my manager ended up actually stealing some money from my investors, and the whole thing was shut down a few days before we were supposed to go out to LA. And that really just shut the whole thing down. And after that happened, I just remember sitting there, you know, I had these crazy dreads and colors and all this stuff. And everybody who was supporting me and who was pushing me and putting money behind me, all of a sudden they were all gone. My manager was gone, you know, my investors were gone, and it was just left with me. And I was just like, I don't like this person, you know? So I got some scissors myself and I cut my dreads off, my green dreads that I had at the time. And I was like, that's it. I'm going back to being me. And so I decided, you know, I was going to continue with music, but I was going to go back to school and I was going to just be myself. And things have gone really well since then. You know, I'm not really making music anymore, but I've been able to use my experience to help other artists now. And I work in artist development and marketing for other artists to really steer them and make sure that they don't fall into like some of the same traps that I did.
That's interesting. So did you find that, when that fell through, you know, that particular day or couple days when everything was falling through, was that a crushing blow, or were you secretly relieved?
I think it was a little bit of both. I was kind of crushed because I was excited about going out to LA. And me and my manager had just dreamed about it and talked about it for so long, and it was finally going to happen. And I was frustrated with him for flushing it down the drain, and I couldn't understand why. But a part of me, really, it was after the situation fell through that I really reflected, because I was just go, go, go for so long. I finally had a chance to just sit back and be like, wait a minute. I've been so focused on creating this thing that I haven't actually taken the time to ask myself, like, is this really what you want for yourself? Where do you see yourself, you know, in 5 years if you continue down this path, you know? So thank God that he did that and that he messed up, because if not, I don't know what I might still be in LA now doing Lord knows what. And, you know, so just I think it was a blessing in disguise.
That's interesting. You've managed to stay kind of in the music business maybe in a kind of
Yeah,
sideline sort of way. Yeah.
absolutely.
Wow. That is. Do you find that that artists are often pressured to become someone they're really not, to become more quote marketable?
Oh yes, absolutely. I've seen it. I mean, and I've seen it happen. And the ironic thing about it is that like we trick ourselves because we see all these celebrity artists and we see what they're doing, and we really trick ourselves into thinking that that's what people want. But what I found, my supporters were actually kind of upset with me. I had gained a lot of new supporters that were kind of just tag along people who saw, that I was going somewhere, they wanted to jump on the bandwagon. But my real supporters, they were like, hey, this isn't you. This isn't what we started. This isn't why we were here, And the great thing about it is that when I went back to just being me, all of those supporters just welcomed me with open arms. They're just like, oh, we're so glad you're just back to being you, that meant a lot to me, because even as I do what I do now, as I'm creating different types of content, I'm doing sales stuff and things like that. Those same supporters who supported me years ago with my music, they support me in this now. And it's like, wow, they support me for me, not because of something that I'm, and so that's priceless. So yeah, I just tell artists, don't fall for, what you think the industry wants you to do. Listen to yourself, listen to your supporters, what you guys want. And so that's what's important.
In some ways, right, like you are what they are.
Yeah, that's great. Right.
Okay. Thank you, Brandon. I have a couple questions for you, or just about rap in general. Now, a lot of people are going to think this is funny because because it's not a genre I'm very familiar with, or it's not a genre that I really enjoy very much. There are a couple of songs, a couple of artists, but I won't embarrass myself by naming like the 4 rap songs that I know. But I want to ask you some questions about rap, just in general, because it certainly is a cultural phenomenon, right? Back when I was growing up, you had pop music and rock music as the mainstays, and now clearly rap has supplanted, certainly at least rock music, as like one of the cultural, as one of the cultural touchstones or leaders. From when I was growing up, rap was very edgy, on the fringe.
Right.
It's now a little bit more mainstream. To what do you attribute the rise of rap, hip hop, etc., in the culture? Why do you think it happened so quickly? Maybe, shall we say, between perhaps maybe 1990 to today, over the last 30 years, perhaps even most particularly in the last 15 to 20 years?
Yeah. So yeah, as you were mentioning, rap is now actually statistically the #1 genre in the entire world, which is crazy. But I think it can be attributed to a few things. One of those things is, I think that rap has sort of morphed itself into so many different genres now. So at first, I think rap was just rap, and there was one type of rap, and it was rap, and that's all there was. Now we have so many different types of rap. There's rap where people are kind of singing, rapping. There's slow rap. There's hardcore rap, underground rap, kind of country sounding rap, but rock rap. There's everything. And so I think they've kind of stolen, fans from all of these other different genres. And then I think another part of it is just, I think Black culture in general, not just in rap, but in the way dress and things like that, I think have just come to a forefront more in the last, few decades. And so I think that has also played a part in that. But I think that, and also the people who lead rap, the leaders of rap, the Jay-Z's, the Kanye West and things, they've been able to really expand themselves beyond rap and really into the world of business, into the world of television, and really just get in front of so many eyeballs that I think it exposed people to rap that would have never really paid attention to it otherwise. Because these rap figures are now becoming bigger than rap itself. They're becoming actual entrepreneurs and real figures in society. And I think that those things have contributed a lot to why rap is where it's at now.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, you mentioned like the rise in Black culture, shall we say, in its prominence within American culture. Certainly, you know, African Americans have always had, I think, a fair, well, I mean, at different times, but been one of the driving forces of American culture. What do you think, is there any particular difference now as opposed to maybe back in the, you know, the 1960s or 50s, you know, Chuck Berry or Jimi Hendrix? What's, is there anything different now that might attribute it to this growing presence?
Yeah. You know, I think it's a lot of things, but I think it's I think there's just more, maybe it's the fact that there's more opportunity, you know, for Black artists now, or maybe it's because, you know, like I said, I think the big part of it is just the people who have really stood out and have really taken it to the next level. Leaders, not only in rap, but just in general, who have, Barack Obama, actually, he released his like list of his favorite songs. Okay. And now I don't know if he wrote that list or not, I'm be honest, but on the list, it was full of rap songs. And so like stuff like that, just Black leaders and just Black influencers just pushing the culture more and more, and then that gaining more attention, and just like it's always been a thing, you know, as you were saying, but I think it's getting to the point now where it's just rising and rising, and I think it's still going up.
Okay, so I have a theory that's not really specifically about rap, but about like cultural movements in general, that I want to run past and see what you think. Of course, you can agree or disagree. So the music I grew up with, we might say rock music, right, started off as a fringe movement, started off as a rebel movement. You know, you had people, you know, smashing guitar, you know, the Who will smash their guitars and their drum, like definitely trying to cultivate that edgy bad boy sort of image. But in time, right, that grew very popular. In time, rock becomes kind of mainstreamed. It starts, in a sense, not to say that there aren't edgy artists, it divulged. You had heavy metal and grunge and hard rock and pop rock. You had all these different venues.
Right.
But in time, right, it's being entirely co-opted by the culture. It's being used to sell Pepsi. It's being used to sell jeans. And then eventually it just becomes a kind of, it's so much with you that you no longer really notice it or care about it. And it kind of fades away. And I don't think rock is dead, but I think it is receding back, and maybe we'll make a comeback in 10 or 20 years, but it'll be a different, edgier sort of thing. Are you at all concerned that rap may suffer something of the same fate? It starts off being edgy and very different. Like I remember, okay, I'm dating myself, and again, I don't claim to know anything, but I remember Public Enemy, and I don't know rap, and like I said, I don't claim to appreciate the genre, but that I recognized, even when I heard it when I was like 17, like, wait, that is something. Like, I don't know if I like it or not, but I knew like that is very definitely a thing. Are you concerned that rap might suffer this fate of kind of overexposure in the culture?
Yeah, I do actually. And that's a great point. That's a great point because it's really already starting to happen. And you see rap, you know, like similar to how rock was. Again, it's being used to promote all these things. It's on the radio constantly. It's very mainstream. And actually something that a lot of people don't realize who aren't like within the world of hip hop is like there is a movement right now of a lot of artists who think that mainstream rap and the rap genre in general is just kind of bleh now. The cool kids, you know, so to speak, coming up are already like all the typical rappers that are so famous now and that everybody loves. They're kind of like, it's kind of played out. And these kids are moving toward, you know, something that's actually more like punk rock with a rap twist on it. And that is actually, I mean, you will see it. I think that it will, I don't know if it will overthrow rap, but it is certainly rising every day. That movement is. And so that type of they kind of label themselves more as the rebellious mainstream radio rap is so high quality sound. It's, you know, so that is, especially as people start to record more of their own music, you know, people nowadays, there used to be studios and people would always go to the studio and record professionally. Nowadays, these kids are just recording, you know, in their house, and it's low quality sound, but it's people are really liking it. And so those people are really going against the mainstream and they're really starting to, I think, make their way up. And I do think that rap is starting to plateau, or it's about to start to plateau as these younger kids start to push something new.
You know, it's interesting. Like, I think you remember being part of the house system, and you remember like the house cheers that we would do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at the beginning of each year, each house would come up with its own kind of chant or cheer. And I think, you know, if we were doing it 10 years ago, I think more or less probably everybody might have wanted to have a guitar and sing something. But Brandon, every house almost all the time does some kind of rap now. But not that it's bad. I mean, you're usually very clever, and rap can get, as you know, obviously, as you know, very linguistically inventive. And there's some great stuff. But that just seems to be the kind of default now for many of our students, which is fine, you know. But yeah, I do wonder when we might start to see a shift. We shall see. We shall see. Part of me thinks, I don't know if you think this, but some of the rap icons of 5-10 years ago are already maybe starting, well, like Jay-Z. Would you say he still has the same cultural oomph as he did, you know, 5 or 10 years ago?
Yeah, certainly not in the rap scene. Yes,
okay.
Not in the rap scene. He doesn't. Absolutely not. But as a cultural figure, yeah, he's still relevant. Of course, he's a cultural figure. But as far as rap goes, he doesn't carry a whole lot of weight these days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brandon, thanks for indulging me. I better quit while I'm ahead talking about rap. I don't know anything about, but I appreciate your thoughts, and I think a lot of our students will be interested in those thoughts as well. So after your rap career, you went back to school more or less full time, and you're at High Point University, as your shirt indicates, and you're pursuing marketing. Is that correct?
Yeah. So you know, I'm actually I'm a communications major. I'm a sales minor. I actually switched my major this year. I was a business major, now communication major, sales minor. But yeah, I am involved really mainly outside of school in marketing and social media marketing. Yeah.
Tell us about that. What, why you picked this field, and what you want, what you see yourself doing with it.
Yeah. So if I'm being honest, the thing that really attracted me to it in the beginning was that there's no startup costs. So I was like, hey, you know, social media marketing, I'd seen some stuff online about it. And, you know, a lot of my friends last summer, they were getting internships, you know, which is an important thing, a more important thing than I realized going into college, you know, to have an internship. And so I didn't have an internship. And so I was like, okay, if I don't have an internship, I need to get some work experience this summer, you know? And so I was interested in social media marketing, like I said, for one, because there was no startup cost, but two, I had some experience in growing my own social media page. You know, as I said, I had gotten it to like 50,000 followers, and I had learned a lot of things in that process. about how to grow a page. What do you do when things go bad? You know, I had gone through a lot of different situations in social media, and I had worked with a few different social media marketers, you know, who my manager had me working with, and I had learned some things from them. And so I was like, hey, I think I can do it. So, you know, I spent last summer basically just making cold calls every day to businesses and going door to door to businesses and trying to sell them on letting me run their social media marketing, which, you know, didn't go super well. But it was a great experience for me, just learning, you know, how to get started. And then what I found is that I really liked sales, because I was trying to sell social media marketing. I was like, wow, I really like sales. I like talking to business owners and stuff. So that's kind of how I first got interested in it. And then finally I started to get some clients. So it's more so now in the realm of, you know, like I said, I manage artists, I manage their social media accounts. I work with some models and also some influencers. And so another big thing is, I don't know if you've heard of TikTok. I'm sure your kids have. But TikTok, I work with some TikTok influencers now. So, you know, and, you know, oddly enough, actually, one of the TikTok influencers I work with, as some of you at the school will remember, Mark Melbourne, well, he now has millions of views on TikTok, and I manage his TikTok as well as a lot of other artists and influencers. And so that's kind of the niche that I found myself in recently. But that's kind of where that's going. And I really see myself in the future really getting into sales. I'm not 100% sure it will be in the social media realm. But I was actually had an internship set up this summer with a company that was not social media related. It was actually, they work with hospitals and dentist offices. Unfortunately, the coronavirus has just dampened that one. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing right now, and that's kind of where I'm looking.
Yeah, and so did this happen kind of by choice, or by you just kind of fell into it? I mean, you've always been great at speaking, and yeah, do you see any connection? All right, so I'm going to take a flyer, right? Like you talked about cold calls. Most people wouldn't want to do that. That must be a difficult thing, but surely maybe there's something there from maybe your experience as an artist, or do you see any confluence there between the different areas of your life and to how you see your career coming together?
I do, and one thing that I have to credit, and I should have mentioned this earlier, is impromptu speeches in Mrs. Mathwin's class. Impromptu speeches are so important. Like, I think everyone should do them, because it just, I don't know, it just sharpens your mind. I think it just makes you so much more adaptable, just like in conversations. And even in settings like this, like how we're having this podcast right now. And something about rapping, freestyling especially, you know, which is when you're just rapping and you don't have it planned and you're just going off the cuff, and impromptu speaking and cold calls and all of these things that require adaptability. I do think that I have some level of skill in those type of things, like adapting on the fly in conversations. And so, but I will say, cold calling it's still not fun, you know. It's like, it's a discipline thing, and it's like, it takes a lot of discipline, and it takes perseverance, really perseverance. I mean, you know, anybody who wants to get into sales, I mean, I think anybody can do it. It's just, how many times can you get the door slammed in your face and still go back? You know, that is huge, you know.
Again, this is nothing I've had any experience with, but talking with some people, they echo what you say. What they would say it requires is a kind of mental fortitude more than anything else, because your hit to miss ratio is way out of whack, and so you have to be you know, you have to be thrilled about the yeses, and the nos have to kind of not really mean that much to you. But you find that to be the case?
Yes, absolutely. And I actually learned, from the mentors I was learning from, you should count up how many no's you can get. How many, make it a game for yourself. Say, hey, because look, you have to get rejected in order to, if you're not getting rejected, you're not talking to enough people, So just, really, there was a guy who said that he's a sales manager, and he said he had a game with his office where he said, okay, guys, the first person who can get 10 no's on Monday morning gets a free gift card to Starbucks, okay? And what ended up happening is they ended up getting way more sales than they would regularly get, because people were so, I got to get another no, I got to get it, they were just pounding the calls, and they were actually, a lot of the time we sit around and we're like, I don't want to make a call because I don't want to get rejected, but they were going straight at it, and it worked. So yeah, having that attitude and just next one is huge. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, that's interesting. We've had some of our students say that one of the biggest adjustments they've had, this wasn't, I think, the case with you necessarily, but from other people, it was like, oh, wait a second, I got a bad grade. I got a grade that, or at least was bad to them, and it was hard for them initially to cope with that. But some students have said, oh, but that was one of the best things that could have happened. I get that bad grade. I say, all right, how did that happen? You move on. Saying no or getting a no, I mean, it's not even necessarily a bad grade. You might have a perfect pitch, but it just doesn't go well.
Yeah.
You must have to get some pretty thick skin. That's a life that I think it's not easy, I'm sure, not for everyone.
Yeah, it requires thick skin, and it requires, because it's not just going on to the next one, it's going on to the next one with a big smile on your face, which is different than, just going on to the next one.
Right.
But for me, I think it's great. For me, I love it, and I think that I can be successful in it, and so I do recommend sales to anybody who it's a great character building thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Fantastic. Brandon, I want to thank you so much for the time you've given us today, and for the perspective and the wisdom you've shared. Is there anything else, is there anything in closing you might want to say to AFA students, parents, or anybody considering the school? Any pearls that you might want to drop, in addition to what you've said so far?
Sure. Actually, so there is something that I would want to say to AFA students, actually, and that is something that I wish I had realized sooner. Is that what's very important for you to do right now, and even for me to do right now at my age, or when you're young, I think the very important thing to do is to build good habits. So AFA is a great place to start doing that. You have a lot of tough coursework. Build habits. Get used to just keeping yourself disciplined, doing things at a certain time, doing things when you don't want to do them, and just doing the work when you don't want to do it. I would say if you can build a discipline and habits like that right now, by the time you get to college, you're going to be head and shoulders above at least 90% of the people, just because, and that's not just in college, I think that's in life. Building habits, just staying consistent and doing things that you don't want to do when you don't want to do them, but doing it anyway. If you can do that now with your schoolwork, I think you're going to be way, way better off. And that is the best advice that I could give any young person or student.
Fantastic. Brandon, thanks so much for joining us today. And thanks for all of your thoughts. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of the semester. I know distance learning isn't easy for you as it is for everybody, but I hope your semester goes well. And thank you again so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast. I'd do it again anytime.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed Brandon Leevy as much as I did, and we'll look forward to seeing you again for another conversation. Take care, everyone. Thanks again.